Starting. All right. Welcome to the Embody Your Natural Masculine Summit. And I am your host, Renee, and I am a love, sexuality, and embodiment coach. And I have organized the summit to inspire you into living a more embodied life. A life where you feel more connected to your own body, more connected to what is alive inside you, and where you can find more pleasure and freedom within yourself. And I also love to inspire you to feel more empowered to be your authentic self and to share all of yourself with the world and with the loved ones around you. And for today, my guest is Julian DeVoe. Thank you for being here. I'm not sure, actually, I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your last name.
You got it. Perfect. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with you and everyone. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So before we go into the interview, I'll just start with introducing you a little bit. And so your bio. Quick with a smile, a boisterous laugh, and a light heart, Julian DeVoe is an advocate for self-growth, thriving health, and personal empowerment. By way of yoga, the shamanic arts, mindful eating, and conscious touch, he encourages the personal discovery of truth. And you are currently teaching internationally, specializing in movement to awaken your innate physical intelligence, purification practices for a vibrant body, mindfulness techniques to sharpen self awareness, and a spiritual art for soul connection. He also works as a craniosacral therapy facilitator, Vedic Thai yoga therapist, and a shamanic energy healer. And you are an evolutionary at heart, and this is an and you are an unwavering advocate for anyone on the path of personal growth and human achievement. And you also wrote two books, The Robust Vitality and a book of verse, Insights Out. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Cool.
Sounds like a lot when you read it.
You're like, well, everything in a row. Yeah.
I got a lot to live up to.
Well, I think everything will work out fine. So to start the interview, can you just share a little bit about your own life story and how you got to like embodiment kind of work and things like that?
Yeah. It wasn't. I wasn't always into this stuff. I was into partying for into my mid-20s. Started in my early teens and into my mid-20s, and my journey began with an upset stomach in my mid-20s. Mm-hmm. And I reflected on that upset stomach and realized that I had been having stomach issues for about 10 years, from cramping and digestive issues and not going to the bathroom well and heartburn and allergies, which I didn't realize were connected to it, and all sorts of things. And then I took a deep dive and started talking with people, mainstream doctors, and then homeopaths, acupuncturists, massage therapists, shamans, and basically got a full, well-rounded perspective. And from that, I just kept on taking the advice of people that I trusted and did all sorts of different methods in order to bring myself into a space of well-being. And over the course of that journey, people would then ask me questions. Hey, how do I do a parasite cleanse? Or how do I do a food-based cleanse? Or, hey, do you have some tips on meditation and or some tips on movement, that sort of thing? So I just started offering. It just kind of happened naturally to that degree. And now I'm, well down the rabbit hole and live in a way that supports what I think is a healthy lifestyle, one that's sustainable and regenerative and joyful. I think that's a big component. So, yeah.
Good. So your personal gut problems started it, and is it something that you also healed with these kind of practices?
Yeah. I think we as humans have a wonderful opportunity to look at pain or discomfort as a teacher. And when we take that opportunity, we can really begin to learn about ourselves as opposed to just eliminating pain. It was because of this discomfort in my body, that I was able to find my own way of healing, that used a bit of Western science, that used a bit of mysticism and shamanism, and that used a bit of holistic practices. And it's worked. And to me, it's come through my own intelligence, and because of that discomfort, because of that pain. So I think that's a great motivator for a lot of people, and it can be debilitating. But I think instead of numbing the pain, I went at it, and mine was physical at the time, but I realized that physical was really the tip of the iceberg, which was mental, emotional, spiritual pain as well. So, yeah.
So when you started working with that physical pain, you kept discovering new layers that were actually like underneath that were connected to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I think that, like, unknowingly or knowingly, we hold a lot of tension and like emotions inside our own body, like they get stuck inside our tissues, our fascia, our body tissues. So, but that's something that I think is never spoken about in like Western science or like medicine or knowledge, like something that's completely ignored. And that's, yeah.
I mean, Renee, you nailed it.
Yeah.
That's the bigger question, is that a lot of us, if we have an upset stomach, is it really the food we ate, or is it the conversation we had? If we have a headache, is it many times we're dehydrated, but is it possibly because we're overthinking things, or we're thinking too heavily about something? And we have a saying in the massage industry that the issues are in the tissues, which we have heard before. And one of the ways I was taught to give touch is to bring in the idea that we're changing cellular memory when you actually touch someone, and that opens up more of a conversation around, this isn't just this limb, or it isn't this muscle, or, oh, you have a knot here in your fascia. It's like there's a story there. There's information there that tends to be more physical, or not more physical, more emotional than it is physical. And I think that gets very exciting, because then we can actually look at really what's going on. And I think that when we look to something like addiction, for example, and any form of it, that when we try and get clean from that thing, abstinence, abstaining from certain intake of whether it be drugs or alcohol or food or television or shopping, whatever it is, the abstinence gives us time to really evaluate what brought us into that environment anyway. Then we have the chance to look at, okay, this is an emotional issue from childhood, perhaps, or it's something I didn't even realize lived inside of me. And that's the tough part of the work. That's the tough part of the work. It's like if you take a good yoga class or have a good body work session and you cry afterwards. Like, oh, I didn't even know I was storing that sort of stuff. And it becomes a part of our not only our body, but our way of being. And that's meant as a survival mechanism. So there's a softening into the discomfort that can allow us to strip away any judgment or any pain that we might have, any judgment or negative thoughts that we might cast upon ourselves because of, oh, well, if I just got rid of this, or if I just resolved my issues with my parents, then my mid-back pain would go away. And it's more about softening into it and saying, oh, isn't that interesting? I know that whenever I think about my mother or my father, that I get this little tweak in my body, and how can I breathe through that? How can I lean into that? So yeah, I think you nailed it. I think the bigger conversation around a lot of these things is what's the emotion behind it? What's the story behind it? What's the metaphor? So yeah.
And when we're like, or you said, like, when we're thinking of, I want to change things and I want to do this differently, that can be like also really challenging, because I think for a part of that like tension or that hold on belief or hold on emotion that we have in our body, a part of that is also a form, something that's trying to keep us safe, or trying to keep us in like a, yeah, like an environment that we know, or like having giving us like the same kind of experiences, because at least we know what is going to happen. So it's really can be difficult to let go of something like that, because it's also a safety mechanism.
Absolutely. We've habituated a way of being that's brought us, that's made us safe, or it's helped us to survive for, you know, whatever reason. When you're younger, or you're at work or something, and your shoulders begin to hurt and you round your back, you know, you're covering up, you're protecting against you know, attacks. And that can be felt. Maybe it's just strong words from somebody else. It doesn't need to be like a, you know, a car coming at you really fast, or, you know, a wild animal, or it's not that you're in a fight with someone, but it could just be something, you know, something that we find tough to deal with. So we armor up.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's exactly right. We've learned this way of being in order for us to survive and get where we are.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, so then we can sit in a space of gratitude, saying, oh yeah, I know my shoulders are a little high and I have, you know, neck pain here, and I know I'm armored up, but that's how I've gotten through life so far.
Yeah.
And I'm still here because of it. You know? So and yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, it was really something that helped you as well at some point. And yeah. So yeah. So how is it for, because I think as men you are even more stronger, have learned in your life by examples that you see around you, like you cannot show emotions and things like that. Is it like even a bigger thing that happening in a lot of male bodies, or is there a difference in like male bodies and female bodies when you like have body work with people? Do you notice a change or difference? I mean,
You mean as a therapist, when I'm working with somebody, do I notice a difference between men and women?
Yeah.
I most of the people that I work with are women. Okay. Majority of them, yeah. But what I've found that's congruent amongst men and women is that most people that I work on through my bodywork practice are in a state of sympathetic nervous system dominance, which means they're a bit more in fight or flight.
Yeah.
Men or women.
Yeah.
And that's telling of the sort of world we live in, is that people are more on. And what I share with a lot of my clients is that really we need slower practices. We need more of the qigong. We need more of the restorative yoga. We need more gentle movement. We need more walks. We need more time away from our technology. And these are like the hard things to do. So what I've noticed is that many of the women that I've been working with are willing to spend more time and more resources diving into their well-being. And this is a model, I think. It's like, well, there's more time and more money just because, you know, one sex is doing it more than another. I think can be inspiring. So there's a bit more of a fluidity with emotion when I work with women. And what I've seen conversely with men is that more and more men are coming to either body work or the movement sessions that I offer, and they're looking for a place to be vulnerable. They're looking for a place to relax and to be able to just be like, ugh, I've been carrying this energetic construct of what it means to be a man, that I've had to be tough and I've had to be strong and I've had to be the breadwinner, and whatever ideas they have from growing up. And and they're looking for a place just to like kind of lie down energetically, you know, just be like, oh, I just need a good, I just need a good cry, you know, I just need a good release. I need someone else I can talk to where I can tell them I'm not feeling strong right now. I am feeling emotional. And what's really nice about many of the men that I'm connecting with now is that there's more of an integrated sense of being, which is a sense of masculine and feminine harmony,
Yeah.
which is happening.
Yeah.
So,
and like masculine and feminine harmony inside each person, you mean, or like between the feminine and the masculine?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's both. I think that as we harmonize, or as we recognize that all of us have masculine and feminine energies within,
Yeah.
and that when we begin to create the inner conversation to work toward a harmonious and integrated way of being, that has an impact in the world, and then people are nicer to each other, more kinder, a bit more empathetic. We develop a way to connect and recognize that, and to say that with these energies that we carry inside of us, is that sometimes we swing, is that sometimes our pendulum swings, and that sometimes I might need more of that masculine, linear, logical, scientific, direct way of being, whereas sometimes I need that softer, curvy, intuitive, emotional way of being. And that would be, you know, kind of some of the feminine characteristics. And when we work in harmony, or we bring to the situation more of one or more of the other when it's needed, then I think our relationships become more empathetic, more connected, more understanding. We can really actually be with people as they are. And this conversation is very inspiring to me, because there are assets and perils to everything, and there are assets and perils to a healthy masculine and an unhealthy masculine, and there are assets and perils to a healthy feminine and an unhealthy feminine. So I think as we journey through these words that signify sensations and feelings and ideas and concepts, and that we can recognize that it's a journey, and that we're going to continue to learn about ourselves. And as we breathe into the spaces within us that carry the discomfort, then we can hopefully walk in a greater sense as we relate to other people, that can really allow us to create a heart-centered connection.
Yes. No. Yeah. You're just falling away a little bit, but I think the connection is good again.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So just for the people that are like not already aware of like the masculine feminine concept, so each person, the idea is that each person has like the masculine and feminine energies inside themselves, and maybe it's 50-50, but or maybe for others it's like 20% feminine, 80% masculine, or everything that is possible, like all kinds of things are possible. So can you share a little bit more about what are those real masculine energies inside a person?
Yeah. So, you know, the way, what would be common language around masculine energy would be direct, logical, linear, pragmatic. Language or common understanding around masculine energy would be linear, logical, direct, pragmatic. In the native tradition, we see that often the son is considered the grandfather. And it's a useful way of thinking about it, because the son is direct, it shines on all things, and there's no judgment in it. It's just direct, linear, straight, illuminating. So that's a useful way of looking at masculine energy. And I think it's hard to just talk about one. So just to share a little bit, what would be masculine energy is masculine, or feminine energy. Feminine energy would be more metaphorical, more innate, more intuitive. And the earth is often called Mother Earth.
Yeah.
So we look at the earth as having all sorts of different landscapes and different flowers and different trees and different humans. And the earth without the sun is a dark mass. So this is where we might start to get a little weird with native tradition, but bear with me, is that the masculine energy would be light encoded and the feminine energy would be dark encoded. And this isn't wrong or bad. This doesn't mean that there's no judgment here with this. Is that when you think of feminine energy, there's a womb, there's an internal, just the physicality. There's a receiving nature to feminine energy. Masculine is giving, which is, it plays out in our physical structures as well. And if you think of Pink Floyd, when you have the beam of light that enters the black prism, then you have the rainbow. So it's in this combination that the creativity happens. So I know I went a little bit off tangent, but
that's perfect.
Yeah. A little bit into the shamanic realm of things, the nature-based sort of mentality. I mean, you can see it also very, very clearly in Indian tradition with Shiva Shakti. They tend to be spun together, commingled. Yeah. So you kind of can't really talk about one without talking about the other. So
there as well. Yeah. And I love the like the word illuminate, or like the masculine energy. I don't think I heard that before to describe it, but I really like that.
Yeah. And again, that doesn't mean that feminine energy doesn't illuminate things. It's just, it does it in a different way.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like it would be like a story, and masculine energy in the story would be like the facts, the detail, the information, it's like this. And the metaphor would be the feminine energy, the meaning behind it, the adjectives, the descriptors. So they both provide information in different ways. It's like kind of like that.
Yeah. And you like also spoke about, before we had a chat before this interview, like you spoke about that a lot of your work is around like connecting to your innate intelligence. And I heard you say that word now again, that was more like on the feminine kind of energy. Can you share a bit more about what this innate intelligence is?
Yeah. I would say it's innate or intuitive or intelligence that comes from within. This is not something that you learn in school, or not something that you learn from a teacher. This is, oh, let me move my body this way, and that feels good for me. Or this is from my experience. I've learned that speaking quietly brings people's attention toward me. And I'm getting wind again. Can't win around here. So what we can do is we can step into feeling-based practices that allow us to connect with nature, or that allow us to connect with ourselves, perhaps meditation. And out of that, there can be a sense of knowing, where you can't really explain it. You can't really have like a proof on the board. You just have the answer. And it's like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but it just feels right.
Yeah.
And we could then go to biology here and say, well, we have a lot of neuro networks and neurology going on in our belly, which is a lot of times where we feel that sensation coming from. And perhaps that's cluing into something. Now, one of my spiritual teachers would say that if you use your belly or your innate intelligence as a radar, and say you have two choices. Do I want to go to this person's house or this person's house? And if you just sit and breathe for a moment and feel and think person A, see how it lands in your belly, and then what does it feel like? And then person B, what does it feel like? And the way he would describe it is that if you get like a scrunch, like a knot, then that's a no. And if you get like an opening, like a ha, then that's a yes. And again, to go into sort of a time space sort of thing, he says that that's information coming from your future self. He would say your future self is beaming back to you that pathway. So anyway, yeah, you can go down the rabbit hole further there if you want, but yeah. So yeah, so that would be a way to begin to awaken your innate intelligence. And the thing is that there's several things at play here. One, there's trust involved, because we need to learn to trust ourselves. That, hey, this might be different than what a lot of these professionals are telling me to do.
Yeah.
Or this might be different than what my parents or this textbook or whatever, but it just feels right to me, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to see it through. And the wonderful thing is that it might turn out to be the best thing ever, and or it might not, but it might turn out to have that you walk into a learning experience, and that there's a way that you can find meaning in that learning experience. It doesn't matter if you get the thing that you want at the end of it, is that we're beginning to trust our intuition and trust our innate intelligence. So
yeah,
like that.
Yeah. So instead of just making every choice with your mind and overthinking things, finding ways to connect with your body, to tune into to your own body and actually feel like, what is a real yes, what is a no for me, and what do I really want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the Taoist tradition, the heart governs the mind. In Andean shamanism, the Quechua, in order to open your mind's eye, you have to have an open heart. So we just see this throughout traditions that may have some wisdom for us. I don't know.
Yeah. And for someone who is like totally not spiritual yet and is like really brought up with all like the ideas like you have to behave like this, if you have to act like that, and you're not supposed to do this, or like you have to follow those rules, what could this be like a first good practice to start with, to find a little bit more about what is it really what I want myself, or what is it really?
Ask that again. You mean to
like the practice you just described, like feeling
yeah.
like when I want to make a choice, like when I go to that person or that person, I'm just going to feel into my own body, into my own belly, like how does it land in my own body? For someone who is like totally new to this kind of practices and is like really like has learned to really make every choice with their head and is not really connected yet with their body, would that be like a good practice to start with?
Yes, that would be good practice. There's an even easier version of that, which or not as hooey, not as like, what are these feeling things, like I don't have those, I don't know what those are. Where if you need to make a really tough decision and your brain is just like rattling around, what I'll do is I'll actually write out, I'll do the write out thing. I'll write out the pros and cons for this choice and that choice, just so the cognitive mind has its vote, it has its say. And then I put it down, I put it away.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's 50-50. Or it's, well, one has this advantage, but it has this disadvantage, and one has this advantage and this disadvantage. So it's really, so what I'll do is I'll wake up in the morning and I ask myself, what choice? And the first thing that comes to mind, and I'll write it down, and I'll do that for about a week, and I'll see. And I'll see what, I'll see what seems to stack up. And a lot of times it'll be like, you'll get, one that's like 90% or 100% of the time, you're going to get the same answer. And that's the gut response. Because right when you wake up in the morning, there's not much in the way of thought. There's not much in the way of mental chatter or stuff that you've done throughout your day. So it's, you get all the cognitive stuff out and then wake up in the morning. Boom. What's the first day? What do I choose?
Yeah.
Like, just ask yourself the question right away. And it's like, oh, it's that. And you have to answer within a half a second.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a useful practice, I think.
Yeah. No, that sounds really useful. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you're in real time, if you need to make a decision, oh, I'm coming to a fork in the road when I'm driving, do I go left or do I go right? It's like, see if you can take one breath in and then one breath out, and then be like, okay, I'm just going to go this way.
Yeah.
So
breathe out and then.
So yeah, that's how you can begin to, you know, yeah. Do I get the orange juice or do I get the apple juice? I don't know, whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, you can practice it with little choices as well.
That's a good practice. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. No, and what you said, like in the morning, it's like I also learned something somewhere sometime that, like, when you ask yourself a question, like when you answer in like the first 1.5 seconds, then you really have like the answer that's coming from within, and after like a second or 1.5 seconds, your mind is going to start to interfere with it, and thoughts are popping up. So then you're like already getting influenced by your own thoughts and your own own belief systems and things like that. Yeah. So the idea with getting up in the morning, asking it like the first thing, and just what is the right first answer that I'm getting? That's a really beautiful one.
Yeah. It's a good practice. Try it. It's a great way to connect with your innate intelligence, which to me is neither masculine nor feminine. It just comes from within.
Yeah.
It's just So
yeah. So what would be something if one would want to connect deeper with their masculine energy?
So as we spoke about, going back to the earth-based teachings that I referenced, the shamanic teachings. When I think of masculine, feminine, again, I go back to my teachers, and one of the things that how they differentiate is that masculine energy is the brute force, is the lifting heavy objects, or is the fast, or is the big strong actions, whereas the feminine strength is the persistence. It's the, I can carry another human in my body for 9 months. I can have my cycles, my moon cycles, which is just a constant. It's more enduring. So any action that you would do that could embody a sense of brute strength or power, or like a short-term burst of, like, for example, running. You can make the case that running is masculine encoded or it's feminine encoded, but if you just take running and say, okay, a sprint would be more of a masculine encoded energy, and a marathon would be more of a feminine encoded. That sort of idea, that the long, more sustainable, more persistent, just like 9 months and then delivering a baby, as opposed to lifting up beams to build a house, or moving big rocks or big boulders, or carrying water up hills, that sort of thing. So so that's a really non-specific practice, but it's meant to be adaptable to what suits your lifestyle. You know what I mean? So you can break everything down, I guess, to a certain degree, into masculine and feminine components. I don't know, maybe doing 10 push-ups really fast is a more masculine way of doing it, and doing it really slow is a feminine way of doing it. I don't know, but yeah, I think what would be the most inspiring way to honor our masculine and feminine is to come to a standing position and just begin to breathe and set the intention. I'm going to move my body in a heightened masculine form and just see what comes out. Maybe it's just standing there. or maybe it is moving slowly, or maybe it's running around the room. And then, come back, center, gather, breathe, and then say, I'm going to move my body in a feminine way, and then see what comes out, because it's going to be unique and different for each person. So that could be another lovely way of doing it. Hopefully you can hear me through wind.
And it's getting a little noisy again. Yeah.
I have to do it all over again.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's useful.
Yeah. No, I think that is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just something that we spoke a little bit before as well, that I would like to have like also in this chat, like you have been to Peru before in your life, and you got initiated by a tribe there. And can you share a little bit more about that? Like what what did this initiation ritual do for you? Like how did it personally change you or change your life?
Yeah. So I lived in Peru for almost 3 years. And over the course of the time there, I worked very closely with some indigenous medicine folks, and they asked me if I wanted to become what's called a Wilcanina, which is a fireman, someone that tends the fire during a sweat lodge, which I believe is only one of many phases of initiation, and the ceremony was run by a woman, and she did a very specific smudging, and you blessed my body with, you are now my son and I am your mother, and your pain is my pain, and your triumph is my triumph. And she said other things, which those are the biggest parts. And then I was met with the other Wilcaninas, or the other firemen, and they, as part of the tradition, they carry a whip. Mm-hmm. And as part of the initiation, we whipped each other on our legs. And it might sound very British and old school, but it's very special to them, because it invokes what's called the spirit of the cuckoo. And the spirit of the cuckoo is basically a big, hairy being that lives in the mountains, and is protectors of the snow and protectors of nature, and basically making sure you're on your best behavior. And I was all scarred up on my legs and everything, and was very, very proud of myself for making it through the initiation, and was met with hugs and joy, and this was a normal thing for them, and it's a huge honor. And I'm blessed to have that, and it's hard to really qualify what happened after that, but the way I can say it is that I felt that I now have a responsibility that I've now grown into. I've left my kind of boyhood behind, and I'm now in a space where I need to be responsible, not only for myself, but for my family, and family being other humans, being the safety and the sanctity of our planet. So it means that I need to be a boundary for people that want to, I don't know, obsessively consume plastic or litter or destroy the environment or these sorts of things. And that I need to really march forward and say, it's not, this is okay and this isn't okay. Yeah. And it's okay for me to say, no, not doing that. And really shift my internal practice as well. Around that, where it's like I need to stop giving up the excuses around, like, oh, well, just this one cookie this time, or it's okay because I'm having a bad day, so I can not worry about whatever it might be. It's like that time is now done, and now it's like, okay, we have work to do as a species. Yeah. We have work to do on the planet, and it's all hands on deck, and I need to make sure that I am playing my role and being a part of it. So, that's kind of the way I felt afterwards, and it's how I still feel now. is that I have a greater sense of responsibility as a man. So yeah.
To connect deeper with your own internal values, and like really helped you to really step up for that, and yeah, make more like choices from that place. Yeah.
Be more in integrity, essentially. To be more in integrity, and to live my values, essentially. So thank you for the reflection on that.
That sounds beautiful. Yeah. All right, so we are like approaching the end of the interview, so is there something, like some last thing that you want to share with the audience? Or
I think I'll end with one of my favorite quotes, which is a Viktor Frankl quote. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and his quote is, "That which is to give light must endure the burning." I gotta say it again.
Yeah, you have to repeat it because the wind was totally screwing that one up.
The wind. It's like, of course, the wind around here. It's a Viktor Frankl quote from a book, The Man's Search for Meaning. And the quote is, "That which is to give light must endure the burning." Did you hear it?
Yes, I heard it.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. And to me, that's the reminder that that as we journey into self, as we embody who we are, that we have a sense of duty or a sense of responsibility to the world around us. And it might not always be easy, whether it be the external or internal. The process of personal growth and development and evolution isn't always fun. This is a long haul process. So that means if we want to illuminate, if we want more vibrancy, if we want more joy in our life, we need to be able to sink deeper into the discomfort, to drive deeper into our dark corners, to befriend and engage and become allies with our shadow and our shadow parts. And think of it as being like a tree, where if you're a tall tree, you have deep roots. So as we ascend toward the light, we descend into the darkness. So it's not just a path upward, it's also a path downward. So
like, what do you mean with what do you mean when you speak about shadows, like your shadows connect?
So what I mean by making an ally with our shadow is shadow comes from a place of a survival. Again, this is back into the survival conversation, where if you're a child and you just want to talk and yell and scream, and then you're told you got to be quiet, then over the course of your time, or over the course of being in school or being at the dinner table, you know that in order to survive that experience, you need to stuff down perhaps some emotion. And then as we get older, we wind up going through life with all these things that are stuffed down, and we need, and that becomes our shadow. So that becomes where a lot of our actions come from. Is a place of that's other than conscious. It's in some ways it's automatic to a certain degree. It's not thought through, and more of our actions come from that place than our conscious mind. And so what I mean is that when we go into a situation, it's trying to develop a sense of witness consciousness, where we can step back and reflect on something after we've done it, and we can say, wow, isn't that interesting? Don't know why I did that. So what I mean with shadow is exactly. So that's kind of what I mean with shadow. That's another conversation. There's a lot more in there.
Conversation about that as well.
That's another. So, well, Renee, this has been a pleasure, and I hope that some of the things that I've shared have some value
I think
to you and your community.
yes. Well, thank you very much for being here. And for everyone who is watching and wants to know more about Julian, check out your website. We will provide you with the link for that. So thank you everyone for being here. And thank you, Julian, for sharing your time and your wisdom. And,
Welcome. Pleasure.